which means that, sorry, can you put it up short? Okay. Which means that since Django was developed in a newsroom environment, and newsroom environments are they always have their deadlines that developers need to meet very quickly, and usually developments in a newsroom happen very rapidly. Django was started by a couple of developers who were working for a newspaper called the Lawrence Journal, and they just wanted a quick way for them to start publishing news for their website. And what they did is actually they started something and they called it the DMS, and then this thing, the DMS, was open source and then became Django. So the important thing about newsroom environment again is that deadlines have to be met by developers and things have to be updated very quickly. And this is why I think Django is very important, because what Django gives us is that it allows us for rapid development very quickly and on the spot. The second reason is that Django was also designed and built with experienced web developers in mind. So even though it's very quick, very easy to build stuff, but still experienced developers are in the mind of the developers who built Django. So it actually allows for a lot of configuration and a lot of tools. It gives a lot of tools that make web development very quick and easy, but also very robust and robust, basically. Okay, the second thing that I'm going to talk about is that Django, since it's a web framework, is based on the Python web programming language. Python is a programming language that was started in 1991 by Guido van Huizen, and he's right now he's like the software lead at Google. But basically, the syntax is very readable, very easy, very beautiful. And the important thing about this is that if I'm writing any source code in Python, any other Python developer can actually just pick it up and read it and immediately understand what that means and immediately understand what I'm trying to do. Even, we always say commenting, leave comments in your source code, but still some developers still forget that, right? But Python, you don't actually need commenting unless it's something very complicated, because the syntax is kind of like self-explanatory. It has some very high-level built-in data types. We have strings in most programming languages, integers and stuff like that, but in Python we also have lists, dictionaries, tuples, and other things. Now, this tutorial is actually not about Python, so I'm going to go quickly through these, but if you want to find out more about them, just a quick search on Google about the built-in high-level data types in Python. The importance of these types is that it's actually, they are, you can build other classes on top of them. They support inheritance. So for example, a dictionary is a key value of hash stack, and what you can do is actually just build something else on top of this, and it provides a lot of functionalities and a lot of methods that are built in this data type. For example, in dictionaries or for example in lists, you can append, remove, delete, order, a lot of methods that are available for any Python list. Or for example, dictionaries, which again is a key value store, and they also provide a lot of methods that are built in. Now, the organizational structure of the code in Python is actually very simple as well. It follows the OOP, objective-oriented programming methodology. So we have functions, classes, and then the level on top of this is that we have modules. A module is something that you can import. A module is something that someone else can build, and then you can just grab the source code of this module and use it in your app or script or whatever you're doing. Now, the level higher than a module is a package, which is a set of modules. You have more than one module in one package, which provides, for example, something like a library. For example, when the Twitter API for Python is a package, it provides a lot of modules that you can use. So I mean, it's easier for you to connect with the Twitter API, for example, with Python. Again, another important thing about Python is that it compiles on the fly to bytecode. So that means since Python is not a compiled language, that means that when you are writing a Python, when you're running a Python script, the code is going to be compiled to a bytecode on the fly very quickly, and then when you run that script again, the bytecode is going to be run by the Python compiler. Again, another important thing is that you can build extensions for your Python scripts or Python software using C or C++. Now, the important thing about this is actually not that there are some things that you can build in Python, but some things are actually faster still in C and C++. So, for example, there are some certain algorithms that you might want, that you can build in C++ and then use this code in your Python script very easily and very quickly. I mean, that was it about Python. This tutorial is about Django. If you want to find more information about Python, there's a tremendous amount of books online, free books actually, online about Python, and the Python documentation is pretty informative. So there's a lot of information in it. So just grab the documentation and start reading about Python. There's a lot of tutorials online as well. Right now we're going to talk about a Django project. Again, Django is a web development framework built on top of Python. So when you're writing code, you're actually writing Python, but you're using a set of functionalities that are provided by the Django framework to make building web apps easier and quicker for you. The structure of a Python project is actually pretty simple because the Django project follows the model view controller design pattern, or MVC. The model view controller design pattern is actually a pretty common design pattern that is used right now by most common web development frameworks. So a quick overview is that we have something called a model, we have something developers actually spend most of their time on building Django apps for people to use. So there's a lot of apps, and we're going to get to some examples in a bit. But most of these, the source code of these apps is always GitHub, Bitbucket, and Google Code. Of course, there are other places, but GitHub and Bitbucket are the most famous for this. There's a website called DjangoPackages.com. Django Packages actually allows for a structured overview of all of these apps. It connects with the API of GitHub, Bitbucket, Google Code, and other repositories to automatically grab all Django apps for you and categorize them in what they offer. Again, if you want to, like having gazillions of apps and you having to find out which app is the best for you. So, for example, let's say there's in the Django community right now, there's like about 20 blog engine apps that I can just right now use. But how can I know which app is the best? The best two ways, I think, are visiting DjangoPackages.com and seeing comments and ratings, and also see rating and comments and tutorials online. So comments on these projects on GitHub and other repository places, and their rating and how many people are watching or following this project. And of course, look for tutorials online. See what people are using. Look for other people who are using these apps and see if they fit your needs. Another important thing about apps is Pinapps. Pinapps is actually a separate project, but it takes care of Django apps. Sorry. What we're going to do right now is as an example, is a library, an online library web application. And we're going to use simple Django for that. We're actually going to create a new project. on Python, the settings.py file is actually nothing but variables and data structures that are based on Python. So it could be either a string, they do root URL configuration, which is the library.url, which is this file, or it could be a tuple, which is this. What we can see here, between parentheses, this is a tuple. And right now we are using some apps that are already provided by Django. that there's a great set of fields that you can use for your Django models. Description and datetime added. So right now, what we're going to do is actually just go to the terminal and run a simple command from manage.py, which is syncdb. Syncdb, what it's going to do is actually it's going to synchronize our database. It's going to build the tables and all what we need, all of the things that we just created here with code in Python in the models.py file, and compare and build it in our database. So right now we can see that it's creating the tables, created the tables that are being used, for example, by apps like the authorization app and the Django sessions app, and our core author, core category, and core book. But every time we create, since we're using right now the authorization app, every time we create a database for the first time, it's going to ask us to create a super user. So we're going to say yes, and we're going to call it admin. And the password is 123123. And that's it. It actually can figure out what are the SQL commands that it needs to run, and it will run them automatically, and we don't have to do anything. Right now, if we check out our files, we see that there's this dev.db file, which Django just created it for us very easily. Now, if we want to see how we can interact with this Django ORM, we're going to run something which is pretty cool actually. Python has this shell command, which allows us to work with Python from the command line immediately. We can say print stuff, and we can see the result immediately. Django has something pretty much similar, which is Python manage, when we run the manage from the manage.py file, we run shell. Now we have access to the Django ORM and other like bundled things with Django. And what we're going to do is actually just import the models that we're going to be working with right now. So let's go to from the library .core.models, import book, author, and category. And right now, if we see the book, we can see that it's a class from our project, from our models in our project. Now what we can do is say A equals book. Well, let's call it B actually. And we can see what kind of options we have for B. See all the fields that we just created. Of course, there are some other things that are being used by Django discreetly. But for example, we have and of course other methods that we can see. But basically we can see that when we are creating the book file, we can set the fields automatically as well, or we can set them after. But let's try to set them before actually. So the book has a title. So let's give it a title. The book. And we have an author. Actually, we don't have an author object yet, so let's first create an author. An author has a name. Hang on a second. I'm going to import datetime. Datetime.nav. And yeah, datetime, we're going to be using it for the date field right there. So when we say A equals author, name equals, let's see, John, and the birthday, datetime, time.now. Now we just need to save A, and right now A is we have an object in our database that is saved in the database automatically via Django using the ORM. So basically, this is Django ORM, and what it does actually is a lot more than this. So right now, we want to see what authors we have. We can just click. We can just run author .object .all. And it returns a list of all the author objects that are stored in the database. And actually, we can do something more than this. We can say get object or 404 function. And we're going to see why we are using them both right now. We're also importing something which is Django also comes with some protection for some known privacy problems with like websites. So this is the CSRF module, which is like the cross-site request forgery, and it basically allows us to have a safe web app from this kind of attacks on our web application. So right now our URLs, if the URL is nothing, is triggering the home view function, right? So we just have to define this function, define home view, and the first argument is always the request object that is passed by the HTTP request. And right now we have these two. Actually, we don't have to care about them right now, but we are returning the render to response. We are returning an object using the render to response function, and what we're giving it is actually the URL, the location of the template that we're going to use, and what kind of values that we want to pass along this return object. So we're returning base.html, which is something that does not exist right now, but we're saying that this function should use the base.html template and pass along everything in C, which is a Python dictionary. Now what we're doing is that line in between is actually we're updating this dictionary to make it safe, the content in it safe, so we don't have to worry about the cross-site request forgery problem. And right now, actually, we're going to create another new file, a new folder, and we're going to call it templates. Now, in this template, we're going to create a file called base.html, and we're going to copy the code from this one to this one. You don't have to worry about these things right now. We're going to explain them later. But basically, this is just a simple HTML document. We're going to save this. Save this. Another thing we have to do is that we have to tell Django where are our templates. Where do they exist? Which is the view part of the model view controller design pattern, right? So right now we are telling the view, which is templates. We just talked about that in the presentation before. In the settings.py file, we have this tuple, which is the template tiers, and it's empty right now. It's telling us in this comment that we have to put the location of where the directory of where our Django templates exist. But what we want to do is actually do something cool here, which is not put the absolute path. We are going to put a relative path, and we're going to get it from here. Basically, what we are doing right now is we are adding a value to this template tiers tuple, and we're telling it that what you have to do is run so the os.path.join is a function that joins two strings and makes them into a URL, into a directory path, and we are taking the directory path of this file, which is settings.py, and we're joining it with templates, the folder we just created. So right now we have templates, a folder that we just created inside our project, right next to the settings.py, and so Django can recognize where it can find our template. And now all we have to do is run this, and as you can see, we value store, and we're going to add some things to this. We're going to add the books, which is a list of books, and we're going to get this list of books from the Django ORM, which is again like we just did before in the command line, book.object.all. Let's also have a list of authors. Author.object.all. Let's also add a list of categories. Category.object.all. Now, it's still the same thing because we're not making use of these variables in our base.html. So now these values are passed actually to this, but we're not making use of them. But before we make use of them, let's talk a little bit about the Django template system. Django provides a very useful system for managing templates, and it's kind of like it works on the inheritance model. I had a slide. Let's see if the presentation works right now. That explains this a little bit better. Okay, so let's remove these things since we're not using them right now. The library, and we're gonna put the books, the books value that we just set. We're gonna make use of it. So in Django, we have something called tag, which looks something like this. So anything that looks like this, and we have some text between it, like some command or something, is a Django tag. And we have something called filters. Filters are actually stuff that are attached to the end of a tag, which is something like this, after this pipe character. So for example, we have time, that we can pass stuff. This is how a filter looks like. And we have something called variables. Now we are passing variables right now, right? So this we put these two curly braces, and we set it to books, and we can see how it actually translates. We see the list of the books that we just added to our database. So, like I said, there are some built-in template tags that come with Django, right? So one of these template tags is actually the for loop command. So let's just do a quick for loop for book in books. Let's add a UL in here. And order list. And let's end for. So what's going to happen between these two is actually every time there's a book, it's going to be represented like an li, like a list item. And we're going to put the book, the title, we're going to put the title of the book only in this. And this is how it looks like. So right now, we can actually go to the administration and try to add another book quickly. Help. Go. Magic. Just for the sake of it. Description. Nothing. Save it. We can see immediately that anything we add there shows up here. So let's try to do something actually a little bit cooler. This is to add by book.author, which is another object that we are having. The book has a foreign key relation with the author. So right now we can actually access the author of this book, and for example, the author has a name and a birthday, right? So let's take name right now by John. ability. So right now, the home view function is actually taking us to base.html. So let's make this home, and let's add another template in here, and let's call it home.html. And right now what we're going to do is we're going to keep this, and we're going to add a block, and we're going to call this block page title, and we're going to end this block. What this means is actually that since we created this block in this base.html file, let's actually, before we continue, let's add another block, and we're going to call it page content, and we're going to cut actually all of this, and put it here. But before we do this, before we can make use of this, right now what we're trying to do is actually make the home.html file inherit the content of the base.html file, and then what we're going to do in the home.html file is just fill in the blanks in these blocks actually, just that easily. So what we do is actually we extend the base.html file, and we say block page title, fill it in with, we're going to add a this time, and we're going to say all page, and for the page content block, we're going to put the source code that we just wrote, with the HTML code that we just wrote inside. So right now, we are inheriting all the code, all the content in base.html, and we're just filling what we want. We're just filling this page title. What this does actually helps us a lot when we're working with big projects, because let's say that we have in here the header of every page that we have, right? Oh, sorry. Okay, makes sense. So right now, let's say that this is the header of every page that we have. So if we have, for example, a view for categories, we have a view for the author, we have a view for a specific book, right? To see more information about this book. Let's say that we added a link in here, made it like this, instead of just an image, we made it a link that will take us to find more information about this book. Clickable stuff. So when we click on it, we actually redirect the user to another URL, which is handled by another view, which will again take the information of this book using the Django ORM and view it on this page. But again, back to this Django template thing. If we have like a gazillion views, right? If we have the category view, we have the author view, we have the book view, and some other views. Let's say that we decided to change the heading of our page. If we did not have that system, the Django template system, we would have had to actually go inside each page and edit it one by one. But now, actually, all we have to do is just edit the page. Let's say that we're now calling it the awesome library. automatically show text to the user based on their preference. So for example, if we have an English, if our website is built in English, we can just tell Django, take all the strings and make a PO file. It will generate a PO file for us called Arabic.po, for example. And then we take this PO, there's a specific PO editor. We type in the words in English, in Arabic instead of in English, and then we send this translated PO file back to Django. We tell it to compile it and use it, and then we switch the language, and voila, it's in Arabic. Everything works. Messages, another very important thing. We talk about authorization, right? We talk about how users interact with the Django administration system and the Django and any Django project for that matter. Messages is a very useful way for the system, for our Django project, to send specific messages to the user who's logged in, or the user who's not logged in, which is commonly known as the anonymous user for any Django project. So we can send specific messages that can be caught by our templates in Django, and then show these messages easily, and then like automatically delete them, automatically see which messages were read, which messages were not read. All of these things send messages sent from the user, from the system to the user. So for example, when you log in, it says logged in successfully, right? So this is a message that if we are using the messages framework in Django, in the Django framework, we can just let it take care of it automatically, and we just show it in our templates. That's it actually for this presentation, for this tutorial. Sorry, if anyone has any questions, please do ask.
When you were showing the sync
Yeah.
syncing database, does it have something similar to Rails where you have a developer database and a function database?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you have two databases, test database and function database?
Yes, actually this is something that I said that we're going to talk about, but then I didn't, which is multiple databases in Django. This is something very cool in Django, which is that any Django project can have more than one database in it, and it can interact with more than one database. So let's say that we have the blog, a blog for our website, for that library site that we just built, right? A specific blog, it's an app that we just built, and we are using that. We want to keep all the content of this blog in a separate database. All we have to do is just go to the settings.py, and we can see in here that we have a dictionary of databases. Basically, the key of this is the name of this database, which is for now default. The default database is always default, and we can just create another one by adding, for example, logdb or testdb or whatever. And what we have to do after that is that we have to create a database handler, which is also something very simple to create. It's just like the admin.py file that we just created to make the admin interface work. We just have to tell Django that whenever you're syncing, whenever someone is using the Django ORM, and the app name is blog or text or something, or maybe some other setting. Maybe whenever the blog setting in my settings.py is set to true, use this database. Whenever it's false, use this other database. It's very simple and it's very good, easy. And there are some other tools that can actually keep our databases synced with each other if we are just using a database online and another database offline for testing or other purposes. But right now, the bad thing about this is that you have to find the correct tutorial. You can find a gazillion tutorials, and you don't know which one is the best. Any other questions?
Let's say let's say that we have built our web applications using Django. What are the sequences later for migration or deployment?
Okay.
How is it gonna be? Database upload on the system, the other system, the file.
So you're saying, so your question is that you have your web application built in another system, and you want to migrate it to Django?
Even if it's being built
In Django?
in a department server and we need to migrate it into production server.
Okay.
What the sequences is.
Okay. So hosting Django apps is actually online. It's actually very simple. Actually, as part, if we didn't have these technical problems earlier, I was planning on hosting something online. But I can show you a website called ep.io. This is a Python hosting website. Since Django is built with Python, what we need is actually just to use, if we're running on Apache, we need to use mod Python in Apache, or we can actually use something better, which is the mod WSGI, which is much better, much faster, and much easier actually to work with, because it's more robust actually than mod Python. So it's very simple. What you have to do is just, for example, in ep.io, and I can show you the documentation really quickly, but creating a Django site, you just need to create a specific file that has information about your address on ep.io, and the username and password for you here, and then the name of the database, the connection with the database, and from the command line you have to install a library on your bash, on your system, which is something you run by running ep.ipto. It's a command, and then you say, for example, ipto upload, enter, and then it uploads everything online, and it works very beautifully, very smoothly. But this is actually something very, new, right? Before people used fast CGI, and what you have to do is just like running curl code online. You just have to take what you built, this whole thing, put it online. If you have SSH connection, you just need to download Python, download Django, and make sure all the make sure all the modules, all the libraries that you're using, for example, Python and Django uses HTTP Live 2 in Python, right? So you have to make sure that library is available on the server. And basically that's it. And the other concern that you might have is the file directories, because it might get confusing between working offline and working online. So it's always better to make things relative. So you know how we did this right now in settings, and when we set the template there here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just use this os.path function to join two URLs. The URL of this file, which I can take, which is automatically generated by Python, Python can automatically get it, and to join it with the template the template string, which is the name of the folder. So this is a relative URL. Right now, if this is running locally or if it's running online, it's still the same thing.
What about the database?
The database, so you're saying if I'm using a local database and I need to migrate it online? Okay, it depends. If you're using SQLite, for example, there is an app called South, but for Django South, I think, yes, South. And what it does is actually, its whole purpose is Django database migration from to like a gazillion types of databases can migrate even from Oracle to SQL to MySQL to Visual Microsoft SQL, whatever it's called, and it can take care of this whole process. But again, if you don't want to use this kind of like sophisticated apps, because SAP is pretty sophisticated, you can just export the SQL, the database that you just built, and put it online. And another cool thing that you can do actually is This JSON file is actually a list of my file of all the things that were in my database. So it could be actually very big. It's fine. What you need to do then is take this file, take it online, and go SSH to your server, and then run the command Python manage.py load data from which file, and everything in there will be loaded to your database.
Even with the schema.
Yes, everything will be loaded. The schema is actually the model, right? This is the model.py file. First, you need to sync your database, and then you need to send this data down.
So Django is an excellent framework.
Yeah.
It's open source. We also have other frameworks like Ruby Arrays based on Ruby and Dan framework or Symfony based on PHP.
Yeah.
And they more or less have the same features. So why did you pick Django?
I chose Django because it's running. I write Python in the first place. I'm a Python developer at the beginning, but then Ruby is very good and very strong, but still Ruby for me, I think this is a preference. It's something that you grow up with. If you learn Ruby at the beginning and then you see Python, you might say Python sucks. And if I learn Python at the beginning and then I see Ruby, I might say Ruby sucks. But for me, I chose it because of Python. The syntax of Python is very simple, very easy to read. Ruby is kind of complex. It tries to simplify things, but then instead of simplifying it, it oversimplifies it. It's like sometimes you look at Ruby code and I just can't read it. I remember the first time I looked at Python code, I immediately knew what it meant. I immediately knew what was going on because it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you can look right here, so from the library.core.models, import this and this and this, and if we have an if statement, for example, let's just, that to if, for example, objects.all, then print hi. So what these two lines will do is actually they will check if there's anything in the database and then print hi if that's it. If there's anything. But still, I mean, if you look at it, even if you don't know Python, you can immediately understand what's going on. So that's why Django, I think, is the best.
Okay. Can I have one more?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a PHP developer.
Okay.
I use Dan framework. Basically, in PHP you have WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla as content management systems, and they are really popular. Do you have anything like them in Python or Django?
Yeah, there are. So we were talking about the Django apps, but unfortunately my presentation stopped working. But you can go to Django packages.com, which is, like I was talking about, Django apps are very much reusable. They can just grab any app and use it in your project. And as you can see in here, there's resilient types of apps for Django, right? Anti-spam, analysis, logs, caching, calendar, chat, CAPTCHA, countries, custom models, data tools, email, anything. So there is a very, one of the most common used apps is Django CMS, just Django-CMS, which is something like Joomla, like Drupal for Django. But Django itself, I like to think of it as something actually that combines between, for example, WordPress and PHP. Even though there's not, you can't really combine, but it allows you to do stuff as easy as you would do it with WordPress. WordPress, you can just install the site, change the template, and that's it. You can run with it. And run with it. But Django allows you to do the same thing with the same power of PHP. If you are only coding PHP, it's very hard to, kickstart a product in a minute.
Without framework.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Last quick can the Django apps talk to each other?
Definitely, because